Hi there, I'm Jason Shepherd. I'm one of the certification engineers at Element Materials Technology certification body. I have here Simon Barracliff, our Senior Technical Specialist. What I'd like to talk about today is the applicability of IEC 60079 Part 0 for non-electrical products. So since 2016, when the 80079 series of standards were introduced, IECX covers now non-electrical products. So the Part 0 has started to change over time as additions have been introduced, and they now cover the non-electrical products. Since 2016, the rules have remained a little bit unclear on how product certificates are to be produced by certification bodies to take into account the Part 0 standard. Since the previous 13463 standards for Europe going over to the ISO 80079, 36 and 37, there was a direct transfer, not so much a consideration for the Part 0. But from a certification point of view, there's been discussions over the years for how the certificates should be produced. So Simon, what is the issue between Part 0 and Part 36 and 37?
I think the issue is, do you use the Part 0 or not? And as you said, those old Atex EN standards, the 13463 series for non-electrical equipment, stood alone. They did no reference to the -0 at all. When the ISO 80079, 36 and 37 came out, there was a general assumption and a sort of rule of thumb that the standards rolled into each other. The 13463, yeah, if you did that, you'd meet the 80079, 36, which is true to a point, except that big difference that the 80079, 36 standards are really specific concept standards within the EX standards family, a bit like intrinsic safety is a concept, or flame-proof.
Yes.
You get a flame-proof standard, intrinsic safety standard, which calls up the general requirements, the -0 standard, for some extra guidance. 80079 series does the same thing, but for non-electrical product.
Yeah.
So it refers across to that -0 standard. And I think along the way, the relevance of that -0, or the importance of that -0, has in some cases got lost. Now, some bodies have followed it to the letter as the standard is written, and applied 600790 with 80079, 36 and 37 as required in all cases. So what Element have done, we've always thought that the three go together. Some bodies now have followed the 13463 approach and not listed the -0. So what IECX have found over recent years, and this was first raised at the IECX meeting in Scotland in 2023, that there are some IECX bodies, including the 790 on the certificate and in the reports, and some who aren't. And there was a long debate about the rights or wrongs of that. The conversation went on in 2024, yes, as you'll remember.
Yeah, it's a long conversation.
A long conversation. And then finally a comeback yet again into Japan. So when you were in IECX meeting in Japan this year, it was raised again. And fortunately, they came to a conclusion at that point.
Yeah, and Simon, you mentioned there's a conclusion. What was that conclusion? What's your opinion of that?
The conclusion is that the 600790 standard has to be applied with the 80079 series standards as well. You can't leave it off. So what IECX have said is that for all new certifications, you would expect the IEC 600790 standard to be applied, so there should be a test report to it within the pack, and it should be listed on the certificate. However, recognising that there's been a diversification of opinion over the last 6 or 7 years, it's not retrospective. So if you've already got a certificate issued under IECX which doesn't include it, you don't need to go back and have it changed, but for all new certifications, it would apply.
Yeah, and similarly for those manufacturers who are doing both IECX and Atex, the IECX rules don't apply directly, but what are the implications within Atex?
Well, as you know as well, Atex, the notified bodies have also talked about that, and there's the same split, perhaps to a lesser extent, of opinion on it. And at the notified body group meeting in February next year, I'm sure they're going to go to talk about it again.
Yeah.
The fact that IECX have made the decision in this way, I think will influence a lot of bodies. We can't be doing one thing as notified bodies and one thing as IECX bodies. So I think we'll coalesce around using the 600790 standard, which is important for manufacturers, because when they're preparing for new certifications, they may not have considered the clauses that are now applicable. Now, fortunately, in ISO 8007-936, there's a table in the front that says which clauses of the 600790 standard apply. So it's easy to find out what's going to be applicable to you, but you just need to go and look. So it's really for people who haven't applied it before. The message is go and have a look at what 8007-936 says, and make sure you fulfill those requirements from the 600790 standard as well before you make your application. Otherwise, it could cause delay in your process.
Yeah, and I think, like you say, that is the key takeaway. If you're transferring old certificates for Atex as well from 13463 to bring them up to date, just think about how the 60079 Part 0 applies, which clauses are applicable, which clauses are not applicable, and just take that into account rather than thinking it's a direct update.
Yes,
which doesn't.
And if you're using electrical standards, you're used to applying the general requirements Part 0 standard anyway.
Yes.
So for people in the electrical arena, it's just common practice. But I think it's for those in purely non-electrical, it's perhaps a bit strange. But again, if people have got questions about this, how they might go about it, they can always come and talk to us, can't they?
Yeah, always come and talk to us.
All right.
Be good. Thank you.